Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Peasant Press Forum. The purpose of this forum is to create space and center peasant and Indigenous voices on the front lines whose experiences are often left out of the conversation. The exploitation they face at the hands of corporations and governments continues unchallenged. It's time that we change that. Today, we are joined by 16 peasant groups from 16 countries around the world. This is an opportunity for international media organizations and peasant organizations to connect. Please approach these conversations with humility and take time to understand the complexities that each of these groups and communities are sharing with you today. The goal is to host these opportunities quarterly, and we hope you will continue to join us and amplify these important issues. So now, let's go ahead and get started with some logistics. As I mentioned earlier, we have 16 peasant groups joining us, speaking a diversity of languages, which means that we have arranged for interpreters. At the bottom of your screen, you will see a globe icon for the interpretation feature. For all the presentations, we have translations in English, French, Spanish available. So please be sure to click that icon and pick the language that is most comfortable for you today. So I want to take a moment to just introduce myself. My name is Manpreet Kaur Kalra. I'm a social impact and equity advisor and anti-racism educator working to decolonize storytelling. My work navigates the intersection of impact communication and global development. I focus on the interconnectivity of economic, social, and climate justice. It is truly an honor to be your moderator today and be able to help facilitate these important conversations. If you do have any questions throughout today's presentations, please feel free to put that in the chat. We have a team that is here and available to help you and guide you through today's presentations. So, one of the things I think is always important when we are approaching conversations from a diversity of cultures and communities is to really take a moment to consciously recognize that we need to create safe spaces. In an effort to create safe spaces, I'm asking all of you to please respect the speakers. It is important that we recognize that each of us approach conversations with our own internalized biases. So I please request all of you to take a moment to pause, reflect, and really approach each of these conversations with cultural humility. The importance here is that we want to make sure that we are creating a space that allows each individual to share their experiences without feeling as though that they need to hold back or censor themselves. So part of that means that there will be moments where some of the topics that are being talked about could be triggering. So I want you to please feel free to turn off your camera if you need to, step away, take a moment for yourself, because some of these conversations can be incredibly tough, which is why creating these spaces is so incredibly important. So with that, I would like to go ahead and get into our conversation for today. I do want to also recognize that part of this is that I may mispronounce some of the names of individuals and organizations. I want to apologize for that up front. I will be trying my best. And so I do want to make sure for all the speakers today that you take a moment to just say your name and the name of your organization so that you are feeling that you can represent yourself the way you would like to be. So Before we get into our first speaker, I want to take a moment to just recognize the state in which we are in, that we are having this conversation. Later this year, as many of you may know, the United Nations Food Systems Summit is being held and has unfortunately, as we have come to establish, been co-opted by corporations with a clear bias in their agenda. We know that when it comes to corporations entering conversations about any form of economic, social, and climate development, we know that those conversations end up prioritizing profit over people. And so when we have these conversations, we are failing to recognize food sovereignty, the harms of pesticide poisoning, human rights violations that take place during these moments and during these movements. So it has become clear that when corporations become the center of these conversations, that corporate innovation is defined by profit and not by the wellness of the greater community, which is why we are going to be starting today's conversation. And our first speaker is going to be from the Global People's Summit. So please take a moment to welcome. I'm just going to pull up our agenda. Give me just a moment. We are going to be hearing first from Dr. Azra Talit Saeed from the Global People's Summit. So I would like to welcome Dr. Azra Talit Saeed.
Thank you so much, Manpreet. And I also apologize if I'm saying your name not the way it should be. I am very pleased to be here, and let me start. I am Azra Talat Saeed from the Asia Pacific Research Network, who is one of the 18 organizing committee members of the Global People's Summit. So I would be, first of all, just take a moment to talk about the UN Food System Summit and then come to the Global People's Summit. In 2019, the United Nations General Secretary announced the convening of the UN food systems to be held this year in September. The push has come from the Food and Agriculture UN agencies and the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum, as you well know, is controlled by corporations to influence the public sector agenda and policies. The UN and the World Economic Forum's strategic framework partnership gives corporations a favored space in the UN. And the WEF is pushing for its new vision for agriculture, based on transformation by leveraging market-based approaches, which is what the corporations really want. The UN Food Summit focal point is Agnes Kalibata of AGRA, the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, and has been a key factor in pushing intensive, chemical-intensive agriculture. There are 5 tracks being followed at the FSS. There's the track 1 is access to safe and nutritious food. Track 2 is shifting to sustainable consumption patterns. And then I'm just going to skip to 5. Track 5 is building resilience to vulnerabilities, shocks, and stress. Each of the 5 tracks are led by mega corporations or consortium of corporations, such as the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, GAIN, or Eat Foundation, Cargill, and corporations from big tech and big food, such as Google and Nestle. The emerging direction of the Food Summit, Food System Summit discussions has been on the promotion of technological fixes and market-based approaches to address hunger and poverty. It does not take into consideration the many structural issues faced by the people of, especially of the third world. So why do we need a Global People's Summit? It is clear that the UN Food System Summit will fail in delivering a truly transformative food system. The GPS is the people's counter to opposing and exposing the corporate agenda. Through the Global People's Movement, we will advance the people's agenda for genuine and progressive food systems transformation. In the for the Global People's Summit, an organizing committee has been set up. It is composed of 18 members, 7 are global and others are regional. I cannot go through the names because of shortage of time. So I'll just say We hope to further strengthen the ongoing campaigns at the national, regional, and global levels against neoliberal globalization, against hazardous TNC technologies that harm the people and planet, such as genetic engineering of food and agrochemicals, against dubious innovations
1
such as
minute.
digitalization of farming that will only further deepen and expand TNC domination. So, the Global People's Summit on Food Systems will have a summit declaration and action plans. For regional activities, we are going to be in 3 continents: Latin America, Asia, and Africa. National activities will be taking place in Asia, and there will be 5 thematic workshops and 4 sectoral workshops. Who can join the Global People's Summit? We invite everyone to join the Global People's Summit who shares the aspirations for food sovereignty and genuine agrarian reform. Those who believe in land to the tiller, those who reject monopoly control over our natural resources for corporate
Les gens qui
profits.
rejettent
Those who share the vision of a future where it is not the unaccountable, profit hungry transnational corporations that are decisive in determining the direction and priorities of food and agriculture, but it is the communities of people in an environment of true people's democracy and sovereignty. I thank you for giving me this.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. You know, Azra, I just wanted to take a moment to ask you a quick question. Can you talk a little bit about what the importance is of having peasant and indigenous voices in the conversation?
Of course, I mean, the masses of the world are in the rural areas, are the food producers, are the small food producers, whether they are indigenous people, whether they are women, whether they are peasants, fisher folk, pastoralists. These are the people who produce what we eat every day. And I was actually in a rural area just yesterday, and it was amazing to see the amount of food that the peasants can produce with no help from the government, with no access to land. And even then, they are able to carve something out for themselves. And they have no voice. Nobody is paying any attention to them, least of all our own governments. Like in Pakistan, I am from Pakistan, and the rural people, the farmers, especially the women farmers, have no voice. It's so hard for them to articulate what is their desire, what is their need, their control over resources. And of course, we all, as you have already said, the United Nations is absolutely ignoring this whole context that the people, the farmers, the peasants have to be at the forefront. And so I think this is very, very critical. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing your experiences and sharing more about the Global People Summit with everyone. I wish we had more time, but you know, in light of silencing peasant and indigenous voices, this is the reason we are holding this conversation and press forum. So with that, another group that is often left out of the conversation are fisher folk who are seldom heard from, which is why our next presenter is Herman Kumara from the National Fisheries Solidarity Movement.
Thank you, Manpreet. My name is Herman Kumara. I'm from National Fisheries Solidarity Movement in Sri Lanka, and also I'm representing from World Forum of Fisher Peoples. I have 12,000 members in my organization, and we are working all around the country as my organization, local organization. So today I'm talking about the issue of how the Colombo International Financial City affect the small-scale fishers. Those are also a very important food producer in the world. So, you know, this project, Colombo Financial City, that we call Port City in brief, which is a Chinese-funded project in Sri Lanka, which is around 1.4 billion US dollars for the reclamation stage. Then it will go up to 15 billion US dollars till 2041. So it is around 269 hectares will be reclaimed, and also out of that, already 118 hectares of land will be gained by the Chinese corporation, Chinese company under the leasing of 99-year lease. So with this, we feel that this is part of the Belt and Road Initiative of Chinese extended imperialism in the world now, and Sri Lanka being one of the victims, the people going to be victims. So this is going to be a real difficulty to the people in the world, in my country, because uh, to reclaim the 269 hectares, the seabed mining, the sand mining was done. Around 90 million cubic meters of sand being dumped to the site, which affected coastal destruction, mainly coral reef destruction, seaweed, and bed of sea was also destroyed. So around 15,000 people were affected, including fisherwomen. So that is one of the greatest difficulty, because people are just surviving in this situation. But with this reclamation project, it is going to be a huge damage. Sea erosion is taking place. Around 100 kilometer coastal line being affected. At the same time, why these people are so hurriedly going to do this project is uh, with several financial regulations being exempted, and they want to use this land as a money laundering center. It's money laundering center to use for use to
1 minute.
black money and so on. So with that, people's livelihood being destroyed, and the environment being destroyed, and it contribute to the climate change effect very adversely. So that is going to be a real danger to the communities. So the people in the country are fighting against this, and while getting together called People's Movement Against Port City, but government did not listen. They continue to build up the port city, and one of the dream city of China. And our local rulers are also trying to use this as an opportunity for money laundering and many other purposes for their own businesses. So that's what's going to happen in my country at the moment. This is going to be a really geopolitical imbalance, and we will be the victims of this geopolitical imbalance, because one side it is China, other side is India,
Thank
US, and
you.
everyone is fighting against. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I do want to ask you one quick question.
Muchas gracias.
You mentioned that there have been protests happening. What has been the government and corporate response to these protests?
You know, this project began in 2014. Then people started fighting. Then what happened in 2015? One government, when they come into power, at that time they promised to stop the project. So they stopped the project to a certain extent. Certain period, like 6 months. And again, the government which stopped the project came up with another massive scale extension of project, and they wanted to go as early it was 2018 hectares, and they extended up to 269 hectares. So in that way, that government continues, though they promised to stop the project. But now the current government that elected in 2019, they continue the project now.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I truly appreciate hearing from you. Just so everyone knows, we are putting additional resources
Para
in the
que
chat.
todos sepan, estamos
And so
incluyendo
if you need
recursos
any of that,
adicionales en el
just feel
chat, así
free
que si
to
los
refer
necesitan, por
to
favor,
the
siéntanse.
chat. All right, so with that, we are going to head over to Tanzania to hear a little bit about how Indigenous people are being displaced in the name of conservation. So I would like to welcome Samuel Nangiria. from Pan-African Living Culture Alliance. Thank you. And then also, please, everyone, be sure to mute yourselves when anyone is speaking. Thank you, Samuel. Welcome. You're currently muted.
Tu micrófono está desactivado. Así. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias por esta oportunidad. Yo soy Samuel Nigeria de Tanzania y me gustaría comenzar mi presentación.
I'd like to ask everyone if
Me
anyone has ever heard about the
gustaría
Serengeti.
preguntarle a todo.
And the second question is whether how do you feel when
¿Cómo se sienten cuando se les pide dejar abandonar sus tierras, sus comunidades, sus hijos,
and you're told leave because this land is
y no se van porque
I'm sharing a story of
estoy compartiendo
It's not something new. We have been survivors of sustained eviction and displacement in the name of conservation. We were moved from the current Serengeti National Park. I know most of you have heard about the Serengeti, you've visited the Serengeti as tourists, but this is not a wilderness. This is not a sanctuary. This was our homeland, and we were pushed in 1959 by the British, and they used a constructed consent that we were forced to sign to leave the 14,000 kilometers square, which is one of the best protected areas in the world now. And from there, we were pushed to Loliondo and Ngorongoro. And ahead of when we were moving, the British government established something called multiple land use in Ngorongoro. This is an area we shared with wildlife because we had been living there for centuries, and they decided to put a law that promoted conservation, promoted tourism, and in the long run, in 1974, we were pushed again out of the Ngorongoro crater. And this time, we are yet facing another, which is I think this will be the last one before we are finished. We have been given a notice this March. 80,000 of us will be evicted from the Ngorongoro. And all these are done in claiming that this land is profitable. This land has potentiality for development of this nation. And because we have taken care of it, Ngorongoro has multiple international status, one being a World Heritage Site. It is also a geopark, but also other many status that international conservation lobby groups to promote conservation of this area and promote business for cooperation. So this story is about eviction, and UNESCO is actually taking advantage to push our government to evict the Maasai so that this area can be left for only companies that can bring tourists, that can do business, and also pay money to our government. And as it stands, if you are going to be evicted out of Ngorongoro, I think this will be the last part of the long-term plan of the colonial strategy to displace us from the areas we have taken care of it for centuries. And if somebody wants to hear more about this, I'm available to be able to share a full story. And this is, I will also share documents about how it is being done with the auspices of UNESCO and IUCN pushing from the site. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samuel. I do want just to take a note for everyone. I apologize if some of you are hearing Spanish and the English. That should be fixed at this point. Samuel, I wanted to ask you, you have faced you've faced violence for speaking out against these issues. Are you willing to share a little bit about your experience and the violence, or maybe the violence your community has faced?
Yeah, myself, I'm a long time, from 2009, I started working to support my community, and I've been arrested 13 times, and also am a bullet survivor. And also, I have spoken before big summits. I've taken this issue to international community in several ways. And my community has actually suffered greatly because we have lost not only the lands, but also the economic base. We have lost our livelihood. Our culture is facing a lot of threats. We are pastoralists. And when we are moved from an area and created as a park, the wildlife also tend to get out of the park and they follow us to where we are taken. So this eviction will not come to an end because when you settle somewhere, we take care of everything, non-human, other things that lives in the area, and this government always come and follow and say, no, this is the case, what is happening in Loliondo. This big issue of Loliondo eviction actually is all about government getting out of the park. So I think
Thank
we
you.
have had a lot of experiences, bad violence about what is happening.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing your experiences with all of us here today. So our next speaker is going to be David Paredes from the Raíz Nacional por la Defensa de la Soberanía Alimentaria in Guatemala. We will be hearing about how seed is the foundation of how we see farming and agriculture. So please let us welcome David.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Good morning from Guatemala, from Guatemala. Today is, according to the Mayan calendar, is a 3E. It's an important day in our path. It means path, and it means to trace that path. And I want to thank for the space that you're giving us to walk in these peasant struggles. My name is David Paredes, and I am part of the National Network in Defense of Food Sovereignty in Guatemala, Red SAG. And we have a struggle fighting for our native seeds and Creole seeds. And what I want to let you know that Guatemala is known as a place of origin and of genetic the diversity for corn. And it is considered to be one of the countries that it's a access for biodiversity in the world. There are 7, you could say, there's 14 ecosystems in our country, a tremendous biodiversity of food diversity. And so we have 8,661 species of plants. 13.5% are originally from Guatemala. And I mention this because this is what is at risk right now in my country. We are under a threat that the state has legally allowed transgenics to bring them into our country. Several years ago in 2016, the popular movement stopped what at that time we called the Monsanto lie, which was a law that was trying to bring transgenics to our country, but it was stopped, halted due to the people's, the peasants' pressure. And this time they are doing it it's three Central American countries, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. And through that union, they are approving, they are enacting related to modified organisms. And it's this pact would authorize the complete freedom for transgenics to come into the country. It talks about opening of the market and transportation and research and experimenting with transgenics, and that is really concerning as a people, as peasants, and as the network throughout the country. We are throughout the country, and we know the tremendous biodiversity that exists. And for indigenous peoples, seeds are they're like our daughters, our sons. they are those children that we must defend, protect, because they are life itself. That is what our grandmothers and grandfathers have taught us. And so
1 minute.
that that richness that they have inherited us is under threat with this pact, this transgenic pact, and then it's proven. And there's not enough, research to show that transgenics can resolve hunger. That's false. We have seen that day after day that when we use these transgenics, then that affects the native species, and we start to lose that biodiversity wealth and that those ancestral seeds. And so, and we start to lose that variety of foods for the humanity. And so the country is under this threat right now, and we have been taking legal actions against our government, against in our courts, but there is no positive response. We are truly concerned, and we are thinking of taking the streets and mobilizations, and that's why we're
Thank
making
you.
this call. And and we thank for this opportunity for you to see what's happening in Guatemala, because there is a human rights violation taking place. Thank you so much.
Thank
This is what
you.
we wanted to come here and denounce and make this call to action. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So on that, would you mind sharing a little bit about how communities' needs are being ignored by corporate policy?
Sí, claro.
Yes, of course. This pact, if it's approved, was never with consultation with the communities. There was no, informed consent. There has been no place for the communities in that regulation, and especially not from the indigenous people. That hasn't existed, and so we've been excluded.
And on that topic, this is why it's really important that we hear directly from communities, because oftentimes those are the voices that are excluded from the decision-making table. Thank you so much, David, for sharing your insights with all of us. With that, I would like to go on to our next presenter, who's going to be speaking from the point of view of actively experiencing the U.S. blockade. So with that, I would like to welcome Aureline Macari Vocera from the Movimiento Campesino Nacional de Venezuela.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you so much. A revolutionary greeting to everyone and to the press that are connected here in this moment. Thank you for making the peasant struggles visible. Our struggles are similar to the struggles throughout the world. I always share in my presentations that I am a peasant. I am a daughter, a granddaughter of peasants. We are generations of peasants. In Venezuela, we strongly express and in an organized way with the government and with the high officials of the revolution that we thank for this space, and we are facing a serious issue that we would like to share internationally. And it's promoted by adverse factors and even enemy factors, even politically, even without us as a country having fulfilled, financial or economic obligations, contractual. We don't understand how a government can declare us as a threat, as an extraordinary threat, unusual extraordinary threat, and they've issued a blockade and executive actions that embargo our companies. And so we are displaced from our lands by these subversive groups that are financed from other outside countries. We are penetrated by groups connected to the CIA. It's important to show the sabotage that's happening with our oil industry and how this has resulted in a lack of um, of oil. And we want the world to know about our class struggle. And my voice is breaking because we are a people who we require for the world to know that we are producing food against all odds. And that is due to the fact that we have we are producing food with our own elements at a local level. We have peasant movements connected to production. We are connected to the production of our land and access to oil, but we want to do all of this in an organized way and conscious way. We are we are saying everywhere that we want to our organizing process has allowed us to be part of a proposal by the high government so that we can promote a policy that would include a bicentennial
Can you please slow
Congress. And
down a
it's
little
been,
bit? Just a little slower?
Alguien,
Just a little slower, please?
gracias.
Gracias.
thank you. And so this tool, that the government, has given us, brought about that 42 social movements to come together and to share their experience and to come together as sectors. And so it's 8 million of us who decided to take on this tool, and it's 799,000 peasants that are part of this. And so we are connected to the production in our country. And so our production challenge is to be able to address the per capita production. And we are promoting two laws. One that has to do with a specific economic zone, and the other one is an anti-blockade and to bring together strategic alliances with the world because they are necessary in order for us to be able to advance our production goals.
Thank you
And
so
so
much.
we must uplift our struggles or increase our production to 1 million hectares to be able to feed our people. And it's important for us to share this story because the life of my nation's lives are at risk. And so we demand our right to be free, to be independent, and no government can impose a system that is different from the one that we have chosen. Our
Thank you so
political
much. I'm
system
so
is
sorry.
under threat
We
due
are out of
to
time. I apologize. Thank you so much. I think that that was incredibly powerful. And I just want to remind everyone that the speaker's contact information, along with information that they're sharing during their presentations, has been made available. So I really appreciate all the information you just shared. It's so powerful. And I could feel the emotions as you were speaking. Thank you so much. I do not have time for questions. I did want to hear everything you had to say. So we will be moving on to the next speaker. Thank you so much. So the next speaker is Chris Chavez from the Peasant Alliance in Pane and Guimaras. Chris, please go ahead.
Thank
Take it away.
Yes. Thank you, Manfred. Hello, everyone. Militant greetings of lasting peace based on social justice. To begin with, let me take you back to a particular event that happened in our place before 2020 ended. On December 30, 2020, at around 4 in the morning, 25 houses in the hinterlands of Central Panay were invaded by a combined forces of the Armed Forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police. At daybreak, 9 men were found dead inside their homes. 16 others were arrested on the basis of weapons and grenades planted in their houses. And 9 communities were left grieving and in shock at the brutality of the attacks. Killed and arrested were community leaders and members of the indigenous peoples group, the Tumandok, we call them, Tumandok people. The 9 men murdered were also leaders of their political organization, the indigenous peasants in defense of land and life, which was most vocal and consistent in the Tumandok people's struggles against the militarization of their ancestral domain and the incursions of destructive projects like the Halaor River Megadam project. The leaders of Tumandok and their organization were tagged as terrorists by the Duterte government. In the aftermath of the attacks, advocates of the Tumandok people were also attacked. A barangay chieftain who was to stand witness to the planting of evidence was murdered on February 28, 2021. And on March 3 of this year also, one of the legal counsels of the imprisoned Tumandok was stabbed repeatedly and left for dead by unknown assailants. His laptop and case files taken. Fortunately, he survived. My name is Rocky Cruz Chavez. I am the Secretary General of the Peasant Alliance in Panay and Guimaras, or Pamangas. Pamangas is the Peasant Alliance advocating for genuine land reform and national industrialization. It is the regional chapter of Kilosang Magbubukid ng Pilipinas, KMP, or the Peasant Movement of the Philippines, no? The broadest and most comprehensive peasant organization in the country. Aside from the genuine land reform and national industrialization, we raise the rural people's consciousness through constant education as a matter of empowering them to defend and protect themselves against human rights abuses. Today, leaders and members of Pamangas, including myself, have been the targets of red tagging, extrajudicial killings, and harassment by the Duterte state forces.
1 minute.
The Tumandok People's Organization, also called Tumandok, or the Indigenous Peasant in Defense of Land and Life, is a chapter of Pamangas. Later in the breakout room, I will share with you some updates with regards to the present situation of the Tumandok people and the cases that were filed against the 16 arrested. This is all for now, and thank you very much.
Thank you. I wanted to know if you could share with us why there are so many landless peasants in the Philippines.
Pardon, please?
Could you share with us a little bit about what the causes are for so many landless peasants in the Philippines?
Yes, in our country, we have the problem of feudalism or the monopoly of land. It is a widespread problem. It is a perennial problem suffered by the Filipino peasantry. And there is only a few landed people who own the land. And these people, these few landlords, we call them landlords, are now in Congress, Philippine Congress, so much so that they will legislate laws that is favorable to their interest.
And then can you also share with us a little bit about if there's any international development institutions working with the government to play a role in the injustice?
Yes, I think we have initial victory at the International Criminal Court. The peasants' issues are being heard internationally. the KMP, our national organization, is I think has been working hard for the issues, all the issues of the peasants to be raised at the level of at the international level, and I think we're successful. We're successful at that.
Thank you so much. And just as a reminder for everyone, we will be having breakout rooms, so you will be able to ask more questions then. Thank you, Chris. So with that, I would like to welcome our next speaker from the Arab Group for the Protection of Nature, Rami Barhoush.
Hi, hello. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. My name is Rami Barhoush. I am from the Arab Group for the Protection of Nature in Jordan. I'm going to be talking about our work in Palestine. Now, the case for the Palestinian farmers is unique in that they not only face what other farmers around the world have to deal with, such as climate change, water scarcity, the pandemic, and the degradation of the ecosystem, but the Palestinian farmers are living under the hammer of an ethno-racist regime that seeks to replace them with a settler colonial population. The founding of Israel in 1948 came at the expense of the indigenous people of Palestine, who suffered mass killings, the erasure of 500 villages, and the expulsion of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians out of their homes to become refugees elsewhere. Now, the Palestinian people today live under Israeli control in three different areas. First, the ones that remained in the area that became Israel in 1948. These are second-class citizens in a state that legalizes Jewish supremacy and domination. Now, the second area is that which Israel occupied in 1967, namely the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. International consensus recognizes these areas as occupied territories. Here, Israel has been in violation of international law, including the Fourth Geneva Conventions, by appropriating Palestinian lands to bring in settlers, build them illegal settlements, service them with Jewish-only roads, electricity, water, and security zones, all on Palestinian land. There are over 200 settlements in the West Bank today, housing around 600,000 settlers. The third area is the Gaza Strip, also recognized internationally as occupied Palestinian territory. Gaza has been reduced to a huge open-air prison where Israel restricts the movement of people and goods. Gazan farmers have endured several military onslaughts in the past 15 years, each time resulting in indiscriminate mass bombings, the destructions of schools, neighborhoods, but also water pumping stations, greenhouses, chicken farms, cow farms, feed mills. And this is where we come in. The Arab Group for the Protection of Nature, or APN, is a Jordanian voluntary organization that seeks to promote food sovereignty by helping farmers utilize their lands and plant them with fruit trees and vegetables. In response to Israel's systematic destruction of Palestinian trees and farms during the Second Intifada uprising in 2000, APN launched a Million Tree campaign in 2003 to help farmers in Palestine plant trees in place of those that were uprooted by the occupation. According to the Palestinian Ministry of Agriculture, Israel has destroyed over 2.5 million trees since 2000. At APN, we recognize that agriculture is the base of the Palestinian community and economy, and we believe that it is the only viable options for the Palestinians, which is to cultivate their lands and to remain attached to them politically as much as economically. APN works to provide them with the means to purchase seedlings, trees, fences, and whatever they need to take care of their lands. Since 2003, APN has been able to support, thank you. APN was able to support 30,000 farmers and does this mainly by partnering with local co-ops, voluntary organizations and municipalities, village councils, and so on. We urge everyone who supports human rights and the people's struggles for freedom to expose the daily violations of Israel against Palestinian farmers and to support APN and other organizations that help farmers with rehabilitating their lands, planting them with trees, providing them with the tools and accessories to cultivate their crops and fruits. APN hopes to continue its work to promote food sovereignty and steadfastness of Palestinian farmers in the face of occupation and colonialism. If you'd like to know any more about this, you can visit our website. It's apnature.org to learn more about our work in Jordan and Palestine. Thank you very much.
Can you share a specific story about Palestinian farmers that can help us conceptualize some of the injustice that you described?
Israel started building a wall that stretches about 750 kilometers long to corner the Palestinians within the areas they live in. And this wall separated the Palestinians from their lands because Palestinian villages are usually clustered around, the houses are clustered around each other, and the farmland goes around the houses, goes around the town. So when the wall was built, tens of thousands of Palestinians were cut off from their lands, and the wall had gates, and the gates would only open certain hours of the day for people with permits. Permits were usually not given, and if somebody had to go cultivate their land or plow the land or pick the fruits, probably they would get a permit. The owner would get a permit to cross the gate and get to their land. And one person cannot take care of the land, so cannot get his family members or farmers that work with him or with her, and so on. So in so many villages and so many towns, there's so many stories. It's probably better to look at the website and see more and more of these stories.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. And again, you can speak to all of our presenters today within the breakout rooms. With that, I would like to welcome Bernard Goody from the Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Organizational Development. Welcome, Bernard. You are currently muted. Bernard, you're currently muted. There we
Good,
go.
thank you. I hope you can hear me now.
Yep.
Okay. Access to my document. Oh. What happened?
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Good afternoon from Ghana. My name is Bernard Guri, and I work for the Center for Indigenous Knowledge and Organizational Development. I'm going to talk to you about a seed law in Ghana that is impacting negatively on peasant communities. The case I want to make is that the Parliament of Ghana have passed a plant variety protection law in spite of protests by Ghanaians. We have fought this law for 10 years as organized peasant farmers, civil society organizations, church-based organizations, and traditional authorities. But the powerful arm of the corporate seed companies and their local counterparts have thwarted our efforts. And today, the law has been passed against the will of the people. This law has also been passed in Nigeria and Kenya, and many more countries in Africa are yet to follow. And the law, the plant variety protection law, was introduced as a requirement for Ghana to join the International Convention for the Protection of New Varieties, the so-called UPOF 91. This is a stringent and restrictive regime for plant variety protection. This law, when enforced, will reduce the wide range of food crops supported by the Ministry of Food and Agriculture in Ghana. The wide range, if I reduce the food crops to just 5 that were supported by the government, this in contrast to the wide range of crops and a local food system which provide good, healthy, and nutritious food to over 90% of the rural population in Ghana. The PVP law, when enforced, will negatively impact on peasant farmers and their communities in many ways. Number one, it will benefit only the few commercial breeders in Ghana and their corporate funders in Europe and America. Secondly, genetic uniformity as a result of this law will lead to loss of wide biodiversity that we maintain in our rural landscapes. This is important for addressing the challenge of climate change and ensuring access to a wide variety variety of food, nutrition, and medicine by rural communities. Indeed, it is widely believed that the apparent resilience of many communities in Ghana to the deadly COVID-19 could be attributed to access to a wide range of nutritious and naturally grown food crops in our rural communities. We will lose all the diverse food varieties if this law is passed. Secondly, the worst impact of the law so far is that it criminalizes those farmers who dare to share or exchange any seeds that are protected by the law. Any farmer who dares to share the protected variety is liable to a jail term of 10 to 15 years. And you can imagine what this means to many millions of peasants in Ghana if they're going to be jailed for practicing their traditional rights of freely saving and sharing seeds.
Thank you.
The ultimate beneficiaries of the new law are actually not the poor women or rural farmers in Ghana, not the poor malnourished children in Ghana, and in fact, not the economy of Ghana. The ultimate beneficiaries are the corporate seed companies in Europe, in America, and the comprador breeders in Ghana. My appeal, this now I have the opportunity to meet to the international press, is to ask to appeal for the international press to advise or appeal to the government of Ghana to disengage from the UPOF 91 system immediately and adopt a sui generis system which allows, which is a more flexible system that allows Ghanaians to have their own law. Secondly, the government appeal to government to reduce subsidies on the formal seed system.
Thank you, Bernard. I'm so sorry.
For these researchers. Thank you.
Thank
Those
you so much.
Who want to ask more information, we can meet during the chat period. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. And as Lauren just mentioned, this is truly a draconian law. And so to learn more, please do ask questions during the breakout rooms. This is a really important topic for us to cover. Earlier, we spoke about the UNFSS. This next talk is about 500 plus faith-based communities standing up to AGRA. I would like to welcome Francesca De Gaspari from the Southern African Faith Communities Environment Institute. You're currently muted.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here with you and to hear all the other speakers this evening or morning, depending on where you are. It's a great honor to be speaking here. I'm the Executive Director of SAFSI, the Southern African Faith Communities Environment Institute. We're located here in Cape Town in South Africa, and we work in the Southern African region. We were started 15 years ago when faith leaders came together because they were concerned about the state of the earth and the role that faith communities are playing in its destruction. And now our network is over 11 countries, and it's inclusive of people of all faiths and none. And we have about 3,500 people on our mailing list, and we engage in lots of different fora. And as you know, climate change is biting hard here in Southern Africa and around the world. We've seen farmlands washed away and crops being destroyed just now in the recent rains we've had. And in other parts, towns are left without water or food after many years of drought. And COVID is making even more visible how our food systems are failing, and this is fueling hunger and poverty. And as many of you know, AGRA has been around since 2006 and pushing an industrialized agricultural approach, and its aims have been to weaken seed and other agricultural policies to enable a corporatization of food systems in Africa. Today, here with me are Celestine Otieno from Kenya and Busi Mangangala from South Africa. There are two farmers who have suffered directly from government policies that agri promotes, policies that are disregarding their seed storage and rejecting aid-tested practices on agroecology. And while AGRA is only 1 year younger than my organization, SAFSI, there's been no significant data or evidence to suggest that this initiative has had a positive impact on African agriculture. In fact, farmers are telling us, and research is demonstrating that it's just the opposite. The numbers of people negatively impacted is not yet fully known, but we know under these worsening conditions, as I've mentioned, of climate change and COVID, we're having a serious region-wide food crisis that's imminent, if not already here in many parts of our region. And because of how AGRA works and how it's funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and its impact on our region, potentially damaging for decades still to come, we are aware that this is weakening government policy to promote a corporate greed rather than strengthening community resilience and sustainability on seeds and agriculture. It's also creating this aggressive frontier expansion of farmlands into wildlands, which means that you're having a breach of the human nature barriers, and you're seeing this release of pathogens into human populations. Oh dear, I'm running out of time. We are here today, 500 faith leaders and organizations in Africa who've signed an open letter to the Gates Foundation, raising concerns about AGRA and its industrialized approach to agriculture in our area. As people of faith and members of the human family, we believe we have a responsibility to be custodians of the earth, and never more than now, faith networks have been entrusted to ensure a just distribution and sharing of resources for all. And in light of the evidence that we see, we are appealing to the Gates Foundation to reconsider how it promotes food security. A locally defined holistic approach that is regenerative in farming methods will really enable this agroecological transformation of sustainable food systems in Africa. So please join us later in the breakout space and we can share more about what's happening in our food systems.
Can you share a specific example of policy that is detrimental to smallholder farmers?
Well, what we've been seeing is, that's a great question, is that when seed laws are captured and put into the need for this high input agriculture, so seed laws no longer recognize the value of seeds that are out of this intellectual property rights. So it's a promotion of seeds that corporate businesses would want farmers to buy. And you're seeing that both within the weakening of policy, but also the promotion by government to farmers. So they have extension workers who go out and promote these practices, which ultimately is destroying the land and livelihoods.
Thank you so much for sharing. And please remember that we will be having breakout rooms where you can ask further questions. So with that, we will be moving on to our next speaker, Asnia from Serikat Perempuan, Indonesia. I apologize for the mispronunciation. I would like to ask Asnia to please go ahead and join me. Again, it's Asnia from Serikat Perempuan, Indonesia. Okay, we may be having some technical issues. Oh, this is a video. I apologize. Thank you, Josh.
Perkenalkan, nama saya Asnia.
My name is Asnia from Seruni, from Kandi Sub-District in Riau Province. I joined Seruni Since
tinggalnya di Blutu.
2018,
Saya
I live
bekerja
in Blutu.
di Empomas Tunggal.
I work in
Infomas
Infomas Tunggal.
adalah
Infomas
milik
Tunggal
perusahaan
is a
besar
subsidiary of a
Sinarmas.
major group,
Buruh
Sinarmas.
di perkebunan sawit,
Workers in the
banyak
oil palm plantation
pelecehan,
often face
kekerasan
harassment and violence
perempuan.
against women.
Perempuan
There are
di perkebunan sawit
women,
itu banyak
there are many
yang
women,
terdampak 4.000
4,000
perempuan.
women working in the
Seperti
plantation,
saya alami,
they are experiencing what I experience.
seperti saya
Experiencing what I
yang
experience.
mencari makan.
I am trying to make
Saya
a living,
dirayu oleh mandor.
and a foreman or supervisor
Sorry, saya tidak
made
bisa menahan
advances
sedih
toward me.
saya.
I'm sorry, I cannot contain my
Saya
sadness.
dirayu.
He made
Saya tidak
advances,
mau.
and I refused
Karena saya memang
because
bekerja
I was there to
mencari
work,
uang
to make
untuk
ends
buat
meet
makan,
so I could eat.
dan keselamatan kerja tidak
Occupational
dijamin.
safety is not provided
Bahkan pun
either.
sebagai kita kena parang,
Sometimes we get hurt
mereka
from
tidak
our
peduli.
machetes, but they don't care.
Cuti haid
We don't get menstrual leave.
kita dilecehkan.
Instead,
oleh
they
mereka.
harass us.
Itu hak kita.
This
hak
is actually
perempuan.
our right as
Bahkan
women.
pun kita harus diperiksa,
Instead, they inspect us,
dibuka,
make us take off our
dilihat oleh
clothes,
mereka.
and inspect our
Jadi kita
genitalia
tidak bisa berbuat apa-apa.
to get
Karena
our
apa?
leave. And there's nothing
Orang
that we can
harus
do.
banyak tahu. Itu
People must know.
kekerasan sampai sekarang.
The use of force continues to
Dan
this day
banyak kawan yang
against
lainnya
many
dan juga saya
of my
sendiri,
colleagues and myself.
seperti teman saya
For example,
yang tidak
my
mau
friend,
dirayu oleh
my colleague,
asistennya,
she refused
dia
an
akan
assistant
diancam
foreman's
dipecat.
advances.
Dan dia pun
He
harus
threatened
menuruti
to fire
kemauan
her.
dia,
She had no
yaitu
choice,
disetubuhin dia.
so he
Harus
raped her.
kita ikutin kemauan
We are left with
asisten
no
tadi.
choice.
Dan saya mau
I want
semua
everyone to know.
orang tahu.
I want
Saya
everybody
tidak
to know.
mau
Because I don't want
sampai
this to continue.
berkelanjutan terus. Pihak perusahaan
The
tidak
company
mau tahu
doesn't want to know
masalah
about
pelecehan siswa
the
ataupun
harassment
kekerasan.
or the assaults.
Dan kalau kita
And if we
melawannya,
fight
kita
back,
diancam, tidak dikasih
we are
kerja,
threatened. We get
kita
no work,
dipecat.
we're
Ya,
fired.
mereka seperti itu
These
yang tidak
people,
punya hati.
are heartless.
Sebenarnya mereka manusia. Di mana
They're
hati
actually
mereka?
humans, but where is
Melihat
their
seorang
heart?
wanita,
They see the women
yang banyak
who give birth
melahirkan anak.
to the children.
Di mana mata mereka?
Where are their eyes?
Kenapa mereka tidak berpihak kepada gurunya?
Why won't they protect the
Dan
workers?
mereka membela
But
atasan-atasan
instead,
mereka.
they're protecting their superiors.
Datang ke Kandis ini,
Since Seruni came to Kandis subdistrict and
semenjak
organized the
itu,
women
saya
workers,
tahu apa
from that
hak-hak
point,
yang harus kita
I learned about
perjuangkan.
my rights that I have to fight
Kita
for.
sering aksi,
With
yaitu
Seruni,
aksi massa,
we hold
dan
protests
menyuarakan
and we raise
suara-suara
our
kita.
voices.
Harapannya
I hope that
organisasi
Seruni
bisa lebih
can
besar
grow
dan
as an organization, and we
kawan,
can build
bisa
our network
menuntut hak-hak kita.
and also demand for our rights.
Just want to give everyone a second to take a deep breath. I apologize for not issuing a trigger warning over audio earlier. Sorry. Osnia will hopefully, depending on connection, be in the breakout rooms later. I would like to request everyone that please, with any of our speakers and presenters here today, please be respectful and respect their privacy when asking questions, and understand if sometimes a question that you ask is just not comfortable for them to respond to. Again, the goal for today is that we create safe spaces for people to be able to share and be vulnerable, because the greatest progress happens from a place of immense vulnerability. I would like to welcome our next speaker. This is actually our soul group from the Global North. It's really important that we recognize this, because oftentimes when we are talking about issues around food justice, we are focused on the Global North perspectives. And it is important that we create spaces to have a diversity of perspectives and a diversity of opinions at the table, because only those from a community can know truly what their needs are and how we can work towards creating more collaborative spaces for justice and important global change within our food system. So with that, I would like to welcome Konda Mason from Jubilee Justice. In case Konda is not here, we do have a backup audio recording.
African diasporic farmers here in the U.S. live in the legacy of 246 years of chattel slavery with no intention of reciprocity for land ownership. There was a glimmer of hope after emancipation, but the U.S. government reneged, broken promise of reparations, 40 acres and a mule that never happened. And yet, in spite of that, Black agrarian farm families managed to amass collectively 20 million acres of land within 50 years of emancipation. It took intentional collaboration, a sharing economy between them in the form of mutual aid. Now, 100 years later, it has all been systematically destroyed, confiscated, both legally and illegally. In those 100 years, generations of Black farmers have not only lost 90% of their land, from 20 million acres down to 2 million, but they have lost trust. Many have lost hope that their true stories will ever be told or will even matter. So when our Jubilee Justice team is invited by the farmers to their land, we come to listen. At first, the sense of lack of trust quietly sits in the middle between us. With time and shared intention, it is turned into loving partnerships. That sense of collaboration and sharing has all but disappeared from farmer to farmer, conditioned by the capitalistic ideology of separation and competition. They have traded cooperation and sharing with American hyper-individualism. They have traded their grandparents' and great-grandparents' natural ways of farming with dependency on agrochemical inputs and practices that destroys life. I remember one day Mr. Sanders, one of our farmers from Mississippi, saying to me with a deep sense of pain covered by laughter, "It doesn't matter if we grow a quality product. The people we sell our rice to just takes it and dumps it. They just dump it. They don't care." What we do first and foremost is care. We care about the farmers, their families, the communities, and the land. The work we do sits at the intersection of some of the U.S.'s most defining issues, and indeed the world: land, race, money, and spirit. We enter the conversation offering the following. 1, a climate-resilient method of growing an African legacy crop, rice. In the 1700s, rice was the most powerful cash crop in America, grown in dangerous swamp water by enslaved Africans in South Carolina. Now, the system of rice intensification takes a farmer out of the swamps and flooded fields and uses 50% less water, 90% less seeds, and 100% less pesticides. 2, We offer the option of joining the Rice Co-op. We are creating the conditions for farmers to collaborate again, sharing information and knowledge and equipment. And 3, we bought a rice mill. We know that land stewardship back in Black and Indigenous hands is vital, but it is still not enough. We must additionally flip the power structure and create democratic, vertically integrated business models with farmer governance and economic participation every step of the way. And lastly, Jubilee Justice has a sister nonprofit supporting organization called Pot Liquor Capital. It is a charitable loan fund that surrounds BIPOC farmers with what we call reparative capital to repair the harm that has been done. And it all begins with building trust and repairing the broken links. We believe it is everyone's responsibility to care about these farmers. They need their stories told, not just stories from the past, but of the bright possible future that we are now co-creating. Thank you so very much.
I just want to let everyone know that we will hopefully have Conda Mason present during the breakout rooms to answer any questions. This is a really important issue domestically in the United States. And so if anyone does have questions, you will also have Conda Mason's contact information in the handouts that you received. Our next speaker is from India, Bapuji Rao, from the organization Andhra Pradesh Vivyasa Vruti Dhrula Union. I would like to invite Bapuji Rao.
Hello everybody, my name is Bapuji Rao. I am an advocate and I am State Secretary of the Andhra Pradesh Welfare Union, which is APVVU. We are working among agricultural workers, shepherds, fisher folks, small and marginal farmers, and Delta Adivasi tribes. We have 565,000 membership. 50% of the members are women, and so for 30 years in our work, we have distributed 224,000 acres of land to the landless poor. Most of the beneficiaries are the titles were given to the in the name of women. We have been working for land rights and wages, fighting against the caste discrimination, like that. And recently, since 2005, we have been working for displaced communities in Polavaram project. This Polavaram project is one of the biggest dam in the country, and politically it is prestigious project for the state of Andhra Pradesh also. You know, 1990s onwards. Come again? Hello? Polavaram project is one of the prestigious projects for the state of Andhra Pradesh, and 371 villages are going to be sublet. 400,000 people are displaced due to this big dam, and nearly 1 lakh acres of agricultural fields also sublet. 20,000 acres of forest lands also sublet. Many people like indigenous communities in India dwelling in this dam area. There is a Patkondu National Park. Most of the primitive tribal groups are also living there, and they are cultivating this forest land. Now, due to this project, actually this project is not for the people, not for the giving any irrigation sources to the agri-field. It is completely meant for corporate, to protect the interest of the corporate. We had 1,900 kilometers coastal region in Andhra Pradesh. In 2005, hello?
Bapuji,
Hello?
are you wearing headphones?
Are you getting?
Are you wearing headphones?
Hello?
Hi.
I'm getting call now.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. In 2005, 68 special economic zones were notified in Andhra Pradesh. 38 special economic zones are in operational process. To give water from this Godavari river, these Polavaram projects came into force. Actually, the nexus with the corporate companies, government blatantly violating the local laws and taking away the lands and food sovereignty from the local communities. It is great try to be the 400 people, those who are living here for generations to generations. Most of the communities, 46% of the affected communities are indigenous communities, and second largest communities are the Dalits. 26% of the affected communities are fisher folk. This Godavari river is very, the Godavari river has abundant fisheries resources. Migrant birds are coming here, and mammals are there. There are so many resources, but due to constructing this big dam, so many resources were losing. So this is not in favor of local communities. This Polavaram project intend to protect the interests of the industries which are coming in the coastal region. Here we are called coastal corridor. So there's so many pharmaceutical companies are coming here, and so many different kind of the industries are located here, as you know. So you know very well about, yeah.
हाँ जी. Are you आपने headphones लगाए हैं? आप जरा ये उतार दो.
हेडफोन्स रिमूव చేయి బాబ్జీ. హెడ్ఫోన్స్ రిమూవ్ చేయి, చాలా డిస్టర్బెన్స్ అవుతా ఉంది, క్లారిటీ లేదు.
Yeah, you know very well about for the last 4 months, so many farmers are protesting in Delhi because of anti-farm laws are bringing, and most of the farmers feel that these new farm laws are threat to the food sovereignty in India, and these corporates are imposing the different legislations through the lobby behind the doors. Most of the corporates turn into politicians also. For example, Adani groups are influencing, and Ambani groups are influencing. They are all looting the local resources in the name of development. They are trying to invest in the crores of rupees. At the same time, they are grabbing the entire lands and food sovereignty from the local communities. This is the situation in Andhra Pradesh as well as in India also.
Anji, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We have 4 more presentations before we will be switching to breakout rooms. Bapuji, please remove your headphones for the breakout rooms. That was very helpful. Thank you. As many of
headphones,
you,
I can't get you. I can't hear you.
Oh, you're okay.
This is the problem.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Thank you so much. And I just want to take a moment to recognize that the world's largest protest is currently still happening in India. It is the farmers' protest. There is a lot of information that is currently out there about the farmers' protest. Farmers from across India are protesting 3 new unjust laws. And this is all in light of also, as many of you may know, COVID-19 has also been quite unfortunately rampant throughout India. And that's a whole other topic as we talk about vaccine access within the global space. Thank you so much. We will continue on to our next speaker. You know, oftentimes when we're talking about climate change, it is not uncommon for us to see communities of color across the global South essentially turned into scapegoats. And we hear often fingers being pointed. And I want to just take a moment to recognize that when it comes to the global CO2 emissions, Africa is responsible for just 3.8% of those. So when talking about climate change and when we're talking about food sovereignty and when we're talking about any of these topics, it's important to recognize that much of the information that we receive is through the prejudiced lens of power. So I would like to welcome our next speaker from the Confederación Peasant du Congo, Nathaniel Buka Mapungu. Welcome.
Bonjour à tous, merci beaucoup.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. I am Nathaniel Buka. I am the spokesperson for Confédération Paysanne of Congo. We have been active for 22 years. I will talk to you about the problems that farmers in our country face. In the different provinces, we suffer from land grabbing. Farmers are stripped of their lands. And there is a problem as regards security in the different provinces. Farmers are being threatened. Peasants in Mayodonge are victims of the REDD Plus projects. Other farmers and peasants suffer from the government programs. There is a project in Bukangalongo. The government has set up a project in partnership with a South African company that has forced people to move from their lands from 3,000 hectares. And they have been prevented from moving across the borders. So these people are kept within their province. They couldn't access water nor the fields because the government has set agricultural and industrial park, but the peasants and farmers have started to reclaim that space. We have set up a clinic for peasant justice in the Kinshasa province. We have registered more than 300 cases of people who have been stripped of their land. The political authorities, in partnership with the landowners, have grabbed 100,000 hectares, and 50,000 hectares have been grabbed by the government and the authorities. So peasants do not know who to turn to.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ceux qui sont au pouvoir qui sont en train de le contraindre. Merci.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, I did want to ask you, what are the human rights violations you have documented in your community?
D'abord, c'est le droit à l'alimentation.
First of all, the right to food. The right to food. We are, you know that when you're not allowed to produce food, then the right to food is violated, and other fundamental human rights are being violated. When you're not granted access to water, when you're not allowed to move freely, because otherwise you'll be arrested, then all these rights are being violated.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate hearing from you. Thank you. For the sake of time, I'm going to keep my comments to a minimum, but I would like to invite our next speaker, Asif Khan from the Pakistan Kisan Mazdoor Tariq. Asif Khan will be speaking on the corporate capture of the dairy sector in Pakistan.
थैंक यू मेरा नाम आसिफ खान है और मैं पाकिस्तान किसान
and I am a member of Pakistan Kisan or PKMT. PKMT is a movement comprising of small and landed farmers and formed in 2008. PKMT organizes and mobilizes farmers to fight for the right to food security, including ownership of and access to productive and resources. I want to highlight the politics. I want to highlight the politics in the livestock and dairy sector in Pakistan. However, before I start, I would like to quote Rupert Humphrey, an American senator. In 1957, he said that America can create food dependencies for other countries, and the world will go down to its will. Pakistan is an agriculture country, and 70% of its population lives in rural areas and is involved in agriculture production. It is because of the tireless efforts of small and landless farmers that Pakistan ranks among the top 10 producers in the world for wheat, rice, sugarcane, cotton, meat, and milk production. Despite their role in food production, small and landless farmers do not own controlled land or seed resources, and neither can they ensure food security for their own households. The reason is because globalization, the WTO Green Revolution, and semi-feudal, semi-colonial socio-economic system is directly responsible for depriving farmers of their rights. Corporations already control the market for seeds and crops, and now they are focused on capturing our invaluable indigenous livestock and the rich and nutritious dairy products they yield, such as milk, clarified butter, or ghee, lassi, and butter. In Pakistan and all of South Asia, farmers are either landless or own very small areas of land. Due to this, owning and or managing livestock is critical for the life and livelihood of farmers. Women farmers are the primary workforce involved in livestock management, and livestock is the major source of their livelihood. Dairy products such as milk, clarified ghee, butter or ghee, lassi and butter that are derived from milk-producing livestock serve as a crucial source of income and also as a critical source of nutrition for households. By consolidating their control over the dairy sector in subsidiary sectors, monopolistic corporations are snatching and destroying the livelihood of small farmers, especially of women farmers. Through the WTO agreements on sanitary and phytosanitary measures, the European, USA and the European Union and Asian Development Bank are complicit in helping transnational corporations establish a monopoly in the dairy and livestock sector. There are many big corporations which are part of this business. One such company is European company called Tetra Pak. In Pakistan, the largest producers of processed milk are Nestle and Peasant Campesina, both of which are European countries. Another one is America's export-oriented livestock company are eager to maximize on the profitability of Pakistan's dairy and livestock sector. One example is a worldwide size in Pakistan. The worldwide size operates under the banner of Maxim Agri and is intensely involved in agriculture and related sectors, particularly the production of formulated fodder and specialized seed for premium fodder. However, worldwide size is most notable for exporting livestock semen. Australian companies are also highly involved in livestock genetic sector. Pakistan has also imported live Holstein cattle from Holland. These countries have very high stakes in the livestock genetic sector. And we can see how these monopolistic corporations are working with the UN.
So if you have questions, please ask them in the breakout rooms. I would like to continue on to our next speaker. Just one moment, please. Thank you. All right, we will be joined next by a Movimiento Centera, MST. The speaker who will be joining us is Alexander Conceição.
Olá, me escuchan?
We can hear you.
Ok. Primeiro, eu quero agradecer.
First of all, I want to give thanks for being able to participate in this forum. It's very important for organizations to be able to share our stories. And next, I would like, after hearing all the movements that I've been hearing from, I want to uplift that the issues faced throughout the world against small farmers, against peasants, all the persecution, the devastation of the environment. This is all a fruit of capitalism and transnationals like Monsanto, Coca-Cola, Nestle, and so many other corporations that are part of this destruction. And so that is why I would like to take advantage of this forum to say and to call on all farmers and peasants for us to be united, to survive, to protect the environment, and united so that we can build an agriculture that can protect nature, the environment, and at the same time save lives and combat hunger and ensure equality and ensure that our lands are sovereign and free for all peoples, all humanity. Peasants can save the world by producing in healthy agriculture, and we can also save the world and fight against the pandemics, because these pandemics are also a product of that brutal industrial production and agriculture through these large corporations, and also the influence from the United States and Europe, who take over territories and they abuse um, and make investments that are against peasants and their ways of producing and living. And so that's why I wanted to begin by sharing that, and that everyone all over the world who have lost a family member due to COVID-19 to feel embraced and loved by our organization, MST, we've lost more than 540,000 people here in Brazil, including my mother, who passed away due to COVID-19. And I would like to share with you all, I want to present the MST, my organization, which was founded in 1984 with a purpose of the struggle for land, the struggle for land reform, and the struggle for social transformation. And we helped for more than 400,000 families today to have access to land and to be able to produce healthy food. We are now 80,000 families that continue the struggle for land, and that number will certainly increase.
One
We are
minute.
a movement that produces, we have been recognized to produce organic rice, the largest production of organic rice in Latin America. And we also produce beans and corn and other products. And so I want to also bring forward the situation we face in Brazil today. In Brazil, we are living a very intense crisis with capitalism at the center in the economy. And in Brazil, that crisis is also transformed into other crises, social, environmental, and the pandemic crisis. In the social crisis, we have more than 14 million people who are unemployed, 60 million who do not have food. And with the pandemic, 540,000 people who have died due to the corruption in the Bolsonaro government, and they're denying science and technology, their policy of denying science and technology, and investing in medicines that were not effective for the pandemic. And so we want to denounce this criminal
Thank
and
you.
genocidal government. And there's 120 impeachment petitions right now against President Bolsonaro, and we want the House President to take on those petitions so that we can impeach the president. And during the pandemic, we have focused on caring for life, and our political stance is to be in solidarity. And that
Thank
is
you.
why, with everything that we've been facing, we are producing healthy food for the Brazilian people, and we've distributed more than five many tons of food. And so right now we
Thank
denounce
you.
the Bolsonaro government, and we invite all of you to join us on July 24th. We'll have a national manifestation against the Bolsonaro government.
Thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate it. I do want everyone to know that MST is actually the largest social movement in all of the Americas. So this is a really important topic, and please feel free to ask your questions during the breakout rooms. I will be holding off on questions right now, follow-up questions at this moment. Our next presentation is from a formerly John Doe in the Nestle USA and Cargill case on child slavery. And one of the things that is important to remember is the fight for justice has truly been a long process. I would like to issue a trigger warning at this moment because the video that we will be watching has references to violence and human trafficking topics. So this can be a difficult subject. Again, please take a deep breath. This is about creating safe spaces. If you do need to step away, we completely understand. We've asked everyone to keep their cameras on, but in moments like these, I understand needing to turn your camera off. If you need to, please feel free to. So with that, we will be hearing Now, a statement by John Doe, formerly John Doe 1.
Je salue tous les paysans du monde. Je suis Fousseini Malé, John Doe 1. Depuis 2005, j'étais l'un des 6 anciens enfants esclaves qui sont réunis pour poursuivre Nestlé et Cargill pour leur rôle dans la création des systèmes de production de cacao qui reposent sur les enfants pour récolter du cacao en Côte d'Ivoire. Notre affaire est devant la Cour suprême et voilà que le 16 juin 2021, il a été renvoyé au niveau du tribunal de première instance. Nous sommes outrés par cette situation. De 1994 à 2000, 6 ans, j'ai été réduit en esclave par Cargill et Nestlé. Ils sont aux États-Unis d'Amérique. Le jugement doit être tranché en Amérique. Parce que ce sont eux qui sont les grands bénéficiaires de mon travail. À l'âge de 14 ans, on m'a trompé pour m'amener dans les plantations de Côte d'Ivoire, à Boubougou, Boiflé. On a dit que je veux de l'argent. Je n'ai rien eu comme argent. Je n'ai eu que la fatigue, la famine, la souffrance. Moi et les autres enfants de la plantation, on était fortement surveillés. La nuit, on est enfermés dans une cabane pour nous empêcher de nous enfuir. J'ai été battu plusieurs fois. J'ai eu des coupures au niveau des pieds, au niveau des bras. J'ai récolté des fèves de cacao pendant toute la journée. J'ai utilisé des machettes et des produits chimiques dangereux. Dans la soif et la famine, j'ai travaillé. C'est à l'âge de 19 ans que j'ai pu m'en sortir. Je n'étais pas le seul dans ce problème de trafic. Il y avait d'autres Maliens et d'autres Burkinabés. Je comprends. C'est à partir du travail des enfants dans les plantations de cacao que les grandes sociétés s'enrichissent. Une étude des Américains en 2020 a dit qu'il y a plus d'1,5 million d'enfants qui travaillent dans les plantations de cacao en Côte d'Ivoire et au Ghana. Cela est très grave. Les avocats, depuis toutes ces années, Terry et Ablaye Mako, me font le contrat depuis 16 ans. Notre dossier était aux États-Unis. Sans suite. À Nestlé et Cargill. Pourquoi les enfants africains vont travailler dans les plantations pour que Cargill et Nestlé puissent avoir le prix du cacao à bon marché? Pourquoi cela? Veuillez obtenir plus d'informations. Contactez-moi et proposez votre aide par l'intermédiaire de mon avocat américain Terry.
All right, thank you, everyone. I do want to share that we shared a document in the chat. It is a written statement by the formerly John Doe 1. Please do not share this document without permission. Again, please do not share this document without permission. So with that, we are going... we are going to transition over to breakout rooms. I want to thank all the 16 speakers who joined us and shared their experiences with us. And this is an incredible opportunity for all of us to come together and hear from those on the front lines. We will be transitioning to breakout rooms. You can ask questions to the speakers. Please, as a reminder, please be respectful, respect privacy, and understand that maybe not all of your questions can be answered in that moment. Breakout rooms will be for 20 minutes. These will have moderation, and you have the opportunity at this moment to choose which breakout room you would like to be a part of. So on your screen, you will see different options for breakout rooms. Please go ahead and select the breakout room that is aligned with your interests. We have breakout room 1 will be about land rights and land grabbing. Breakout room 2 will be about corporate capture and seed. Breakout room 3 will be about international development. And breakout room 4 will be about violence.
Those will be available in just a minute.
Great, thank you so much. So just hold tight and you'll see those options appear on the screen in front of you. I really just want to thank all of you again for your patience. As a reminder, this is the first time we are putting together this event. So, and hopefully the first in many others. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are hoping to make this a quarterly event. So I just do appreciate all of your patience as we figure out some of the technical stuff and also your patience with me. I do want to apologize if at any point I mispronounced any names of organizations or individuals. I am also trying to learn along the way, so I appreciate everyone for joining. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and being part of today's event. This was, as I mentioned earlier, a community effort. It is a team effort. So many individuals played such a significant role in making today's program possible. I really want to remind everyone that it is just, there's so much strength in us coming together and hearing from individuals on the front lines and really creating the space to approach these conversations with grace and humility. So I appreciate everyone being here and spending your time with all of us. Before anything else, I want to really thank all of our 16 speakers and interpreters who were here and helped us learn from each other and share knowledge with each other. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Really appreciate the effort that all of you put in. I want to also thank the Pesticide Action Network, Asia Pacific, KMP, Asian Peasant Coalition, and of course, the team that made all the technical stuff actually work, so I didn't have to think about it. I really appreciate all the hard work that all of you put into this. Brendan, Josh, Lauren, all of you did such an amazing job. A lot went into creating this event, and I've been in a lot of the emails, but I'm sure that those emails that I was a part of were just a fraction of many of the conversations that took place on various platforms to get this event together. There has been no direct funding for this program to date. So that means that if you can, we would sincerely appreciate if you believe in the purpose of this event to donate to a growing culture who took on the costs of producing the event and sharing all of these stories with all of you today. We hope, again, to make this a quarterly program. Sign up is rolling. If you do write any articles or have created any content around the event, please be sure to share them. And we want to be able to share these stories with the peasant groups and the organizer, share this with the organizers of the Peasant Press Forum. It's incredibly important that we share knowledge with each other. When you reach out to any of the groups and speakers, please let them know if you are interested in receiving updates on the topic or pitches from them. Please also approach all conversations with respect and understand that not everyone is going to be willing to answer all questions, and that is okay. So I just want to reiterate that. Thank you. And you will be receiving a feedback form, so please keep an eye out for that. And we hope to see you in 3 months. So thank you again. I really appreciate all of you being here, and keep an eye out for on your inbox for more information, and all the contact information and everything has been organized into a fantastic PDF that you all should have. So please do stay in touch and reach out to the groups that you heard from today. That is the reason that they are here. Thank you so much.